Charlie Chaplin, Laughing Through Tears, read and published by Mr. Books. There are certain figures who surpass mere performance or popularity, whose names evolve over time to become symbols of the human spirit itself. Charlie Chaplin is one such legend, a man whose Lilliputian mustache, bowler hat, and wobbly cane became more than mere costume. They became the very iconography of laughter and sorrow intertwined. Chaplin mastered the delicate blend of comedy and tragedy, a dance between joy and heartbreak that continues to echo a century later in the collective soul of humanity. To watch Chaplin is to witness laughter bloom from the fertile ground of pain. Born into abject poverty in the shadowed streets of Victorian London, Charlie's earliest memories were threaded with hunger, loss, and instability. Yet somehow, from the depths of deprivation, he drew forth an irrepressible spirit, a determination, not merely to survive, but to transform suffering into beauty and hope. On the silent screen, he walked with penguin steps across the tightrope of emotion, coaxing smiles from the wounded and tears from the cynical. His Tramp persona was an everyman and an outsider, clumsy, poor, heartbreakingly hopeful, a mirror in which hundreds of millions glimpsed their own tribulations and dreams. Laughing Through Tears is not only the story of a genius comedian, but a luminous meditation on the alchemy of art. How is it that laughter and sorrow, two seeming opposites, become siblings in the hands of a master? This book follows Chaplin from dusty stages of London's music halls to the golden boulevards of Hollywood, from orphaned child to global idol, from the heights of cinematic innovation to the depths of political exile. Along this journey, we peer beneath the bowler hat, seeking the fragile heart that beats behind the painted smile. Chaplin's life was a paradox, universally beloved yet often lonely, supremely successful yet haunted by insecurity and scandal. Each chapter explores a different facet of this enigmatic figure, weaving historical detail with emotional insight. We delve into his creative process, his turbulent personal relationships, his battles with authority, and ultimately his enduring belief in the redemptive power of laughter. In a world still racked by struggle and uncertainty, Chaplin's story invites us to look past simple cheerfulness and instead cherish resilience. As you turn these pages, the hope is that you'll not only rediscover the Tramp, but also find in his laughter an echo of your own tears, a reminder that every human heart, when touched by compassion and comic defiance, can learn to dance through the storm. Before we dive in, make sure to subscribe and hit that like button to support the channel. And don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you never miss an audiobook that could change your life. Now let's begin. Enjoy. Chapter 1. The Birth of the Tramp. Humble Beginnings. The story of Charlie Chaplin could begin with applause and footlights, with the dizzy sparkle of fame, but that would be a disappointing illusion. To truly know the man who would one day make the world laugh, one must first descend into the gloom of late 19th century London, where the seeds of the Tramp were sown amid soot, hunger, and unspeakable hardship. The world into which Charles Spencer Chaplin was born on April 16, 1889, was not charitable. The East End's cobbles were slick with rain and poverty. Its alleys rang with laughter, but also with cries of hunger. Into this world Charlie emerged, the frail son of two struggling music hall performers. His father, a man endowed with reasonable talent and unreasonable appetites, was too often found at the bottom of a gin bottle, while his mother, Hannah, struggled heroically but futilely against encroaching madness. Charlie's memories began, as so many of ours do, with a sense of absence. His father's sporadic presence was a spectre more than a comfort, and when alcohol finally claimed Mr. Chaplin, Young Charlie was left staring through the window at a world that seemed determined to shut him out. His mother's mental breakdowns drove the family in and out of the dreaded workhouse, a place where hope, dignity, and childhood dreams were often battered to death. Yet, in the grit and greyness of these early years, there were precious shards of colour. On certain evenings, Hannah's voice would rise above the gloom, her songs weaving magic inside dingy flats. She would sing for Charlie and his brother Sid, spinning tales and laughter from thin air. It was here, on the edges of despair, that Charlie learned the secret of survival, to find joy, wherever possible, in the absurdity of existence. The first real performance of Charlie's life occurred not on purpose, but by necessity. When Hannah lost her voice mid-act at the Aldershot canteen, 5-year-old Charlie took the stage to cover for her. The audience, rowdy and skeptical, was won over by his improvisational spirit. For one glittering moment, his mimicry and silly dances turned heartbreak into a choir of laughter. The seed of the Tramp was planted, a simple, vulnerable figure capable of enduring and even elevating the hardships that life hurled at him. This formative event was symbolic. For Charlie, art was not escapism, but adaptation. The world of performance offered not just a reprieve from misery, but a way to transform it into something beautiful. He learned early the restless truth that to make others laugh is to claim power over suffering, to shape one's own fate, even amidst chaos. As Charlie entered adolescence, his life became a chase for stability, emotional and economic. He hungered for food, for affection, and for a place among others who made magic on stage. Charlie's half-brother Sid, sharing his hunger and hope, became an anchor. Together, the brothers took to the music hall circuits, scraping by on the generosity of vaudeville. For every meal they earned, there were nights spent cold and unsheltered. Their brand of comedy, sharp and melancholy, was not so much invented as lived. Every pratfall and smile bore the mark of experience. It was in those shadowy theatres that Charlie began stitching together the components of the iconic Tramp, a mix of desperation and defiance, slapstick and subtlety, joy and grief. The Tramp was not just a character, but a vessel, a way for Charlie to carry both his wounds and his wonder before the eyes of the world. These humble beginnings were not something he ever wished to escape entirely. Instead, they became the crucible from which his greatest art would emerge. As he later said, to truly laugh, you must be able to take your pain and play with it. And so, in the grimy streets and drafty rooms of his childhood, Chaplin learned to laugh through tears, a lesson he would spend his life teaching to the rest of us. Chapter 2. Tears Behind the Curtain. A Troubled Childhood. It is easy, when basking in the glow of Chaplin's later triumphs, to forget the shadow that followed him for so long. A shadow born not from fame or fortune, but from the wounds of a battered childhood. To truly understand the wellspring of laughter in Chaplin's work, one must look into the depths of his early wounds. Charlie's mother, Hannah, was both a lifeline and a tragic figure. With eyes that had once captivated audiences, she remained, determined to uplift her sons, even as her mind began to fray. The relationship between mother and child was deeply intimate, a sanctuary amid the collapsing world around them. But as mental illness began to tighten its grip, punctuating their lives with unpredictability and despair, Charlie was forced into a caretaker role at an age when most children are still lost in play. The sight of his mother's descent into silence and confusion would haunt Charlie throughout his life. He would see her, even in his dreams, wandering aimlessly, unmoored from reality. Their survival meant endless moves, nights on friends' floors, and the constant spectre of the workhouse. An institution meant more to punish the poor than to save them. Charlie and Sid shuffled between charity homes, state-run orphanages, and suffocating hostels. Each transition represented not only uncertainty, but the loss of whatever fragile security they managed to build. The workhouse was a hellish machine, grinding away the individuality and hope of its inmates, even for a child as irrepressible as Charlie. The days were long and bleak. They rose before dawn, shivering in the cold, their stomachs rumbling with hunger. The meals were thin, the beds harder still. In those grey corridors, Charlie learned about life's cruelties, the indifference of institutions, the sharp edges of hunger, humiliation, and exclusion. Yet the workhouse, for all its harshness, also instilled in him a potent empathy for those on society's margins, a theme that would define his art. It was during this period that Charlie's inner world grew more vivid. Knowing isolation as an intimate companion, he learned to amuse himself with mimicry and imaginary games. He watched people, the way a beggar limped, the way a butcher laughed, the tragedy and comedy that flickered in every soul who wandered past him. Out of necessity, he became an observer, a student of human nature, collecting details that he would later transform into the gestures and mannerisms of his characters. Laughter became both a refuge and a rebellion. During one of Hannah's longer stays in the asylum, Charlie found himself alone in a world that seemed hostile to children without protectors. Yet even as he ached for his mother, he never turned cruel. Stories from this time compare him to a little knight-errant, bearing up with stoic dignity, refusing to surrender completely to despair. A neighbor remembered him as a boy with sad eyes, always ready to help his brother. As the years passed, Charlie developed a fierce self-reliance and a gentle compassion for all who suffered. These were not simple sentimentalities, but hard-won traits forged in hardship. The theatre, first a fantasy, then a lifeline, offered a rare source of joy. He clung to every opportunity, no matter how meager: a role in a children's troupe, a walk-on part in a traveling show, a moment in the chorus. The applause he received was a salve for his wounds. Each laugh and cheer, a small vote of confidence from the universe. It is said that children who experience great pain early either break or become remarkable. Chaplin became remarkable, not by overcoming his grief, but by absorbing it, transforming it, weaving it into the fabric of his art. The tears that marked his youth never fully dried, but through his comedy he learned to let them glisten beneath the surface, visible for those who cared to look. Behind the curtain of every Chaplin film, the pratfalls, the nimble dances, the hopeful eyes of the Tramp, lurk the real tears of a lonely child. Charlie's genius would lie in his ability to share both, his laughter and his sorrow with the world, knowing all too well that one makes the other shine brighter. Chapter 3. Finding Joy in Shadows. The rise of a star. The rags that had shrouded Charlie's early years grew threadbare, but as he stepped onto the stage, first in dim back rooms and later in the glowing footlights, something extraordinary happened. The sorrow that had often threatened to swallow him whole became on stage a source of peculiar joy, an energy to be harnessed and transformed. His first proper engagement came with the 8 Lancashire Lads, a youthful troupe of clog dancers. Performing was grueling, the pay was meager, and the travel was exhausting. Yet for Charlie it was paradise. Here, applause was the melody of hope, filling him with a worth that eluded him elsewhere. Despite his shyness, Charlie flourished, quickly distinguishing himself by infusing his performances with comedic flair. Exaggerated stumbles, impromptu faces, and the glimmer of rebellion in his eyes. The audience, hungry for laughter, recognized his unique gift and rewarded him accordingly. But the real break came with Fred Karno's Comedy Company, a troupe famous for slapstick, improvisation, and wild innovation. Charlie was barely out. Of his teens, short and somewhat gawky, but his hunger for both bread and belonging propelled him past hesitation. Under Carno's demanding direction, he learned everything. The perfect timing of a pie in the face, the subtleties of physical storytelling, the art of making heartbreak funny. He toured Britain, Europe, and at last America, each new city a proving ground, each mistake a chance to refine his craft. America, with its restless energy and ceaseless opportunity, became the canvas upon which Chaplin would forge his legend. In 1913, while touring with Carno, he caught the eye of Max Sennett, the king of comedy, at Keystone Studios. Sennett's world resembled a circus, packed with wild car chases, mustachioed villains, and frantic slapstick. While the frenzied, pace-thrilled audiences, Charlie yearned for something subtler, a comedy where empathy, not just chaos, was king. At Keystone, Chaplin struggled at first. His humor was quiet, nuanced, a whisper among shouts, and nearly lost amid pies and pratfalls. Yet he persisted, refusing to dilute his truth for the sake of convention. Every character he portrayed was an opportunity not only for laughs, but for connection. Within a year, he had not only mastered but transformed the studio's aesthetic. His costume, the baggy pants, tight coat, battered hat, and that unmistakable mustache became his calling card. The Tramp was born, and with him, a new era of comedy. The Tramp perplexed many. Was he an aristocrat fallen on hard times, or a beggar dreaming of grandeur, a fool or an oracle? Chaplin's genius lay in the ambiguity. Each film became a bittersweet parable. The Tramp's hunger mirrored Charlie's own, his defiance a tribute to the little boy who had survived. Audiences laughed, but they also wept, recognizing in the Tramp's struggles the shape of their own. Fame came quickly, almost dizzyingly so. By the time he was 25, Chaplin was the most recognized face in the world. His films were projected in Nickelodeons and grand theaters alike. His Tramp walking across continents, translated into every language, yet always speaking the mute, universal tongue of heartbreak and hope. In the glow of this newfound celebrity, Charlie remained a wanderer, a soul with no real home but the stage. He lavished attention on the details of his art, obsessing over timing, music, and pathos. Even in success, he retained the outsider's gaze, empathetic, wary, alive to both joy and injustice. The laughter he conjured was not escapism, but resistance, a means of gravitating toward the light even as the shadows loomed near. With every step in the orphan's battered shoes, Charlie Chaplin invited the world to laugh through its tears. And as the world laughed, something remarkable happened. It began, perhaps for the first time, to believe in the possibility of joy rising from even its darkest shadows. Chapter 4. Master of Mirth. Crafting the universal clown, Charlie Chaplin's ascent to stardom was no accident. It was the result of an obsessive devotion to his craft, a nearly holy reverence for comedy's power to heal and bridge the divides of language, class, and nationality. The humble Tramp did not belong to one nation or culture. He was, in every wobbling gait and doffed hat, an avatar for humanity itself. After his initial success at Keystone Studios, Chaplin sprinted forward, refusing to rest in the comfort of formula. Each new film became an experiment in emotional alchemy. He painstakingly wrote, directed, acted in, composed music for, and edited his pictures. No detail went untouched. The world saw only the laughs, but behind every gag lay hours of revising, each pratfall honed to a poet's precision. But what gave Chaplin's comedy its universal heft was not just its physicality, but the current of sadness that ran beneath. In films like The Kid, we see the Tramp as a surrogate father, poor, Outcast and vulnerable, but overflowing with love and dignity, this mixture of heartbreak and hope, humor and humanity became Chaplin's signature. No matter how ludicrous the stunts, the audience always glimpsed a genuine soul behind the mask. Chaplin's labor methods could be excruciating, both for himself and for his collaborators. He would shoot hundreds of takes, exploring every possible nuance of a scene. He sought perfection not for its own sake, but because he believed in the transformative power of laughter. It was his mission to coax joy from even the bleakest situations, to show a world battered by war, crisis, and rapid change that light could still be found. The silence of early cinema became Chaplin's canvas, and he wielded it with masterful skill. Without a single spoken word, he could convey longing, despair, love, and hope. He believed that silent comedy, more than any other form, could communicate the feeling of being human, that loneliness and yearning drew people together more powerfully than language ever could. The Tramp's misadventures, battling policemen, falling in love, stumbling into jobs, were rooted in the absurdities of real life. Chaplin's humor was always mixed with sharp social observation, the cruelty of the rich, the indifference of bureaucracy, the desperation of the poor. Comedy was never just about making people laugh. It was a form of protest, an invitation to empathy. Films like Modern Times and City Lights exposed the dehumanizing effects of industrialization, but always filtered through the prism of hope. As his fame grew, so did Chaplin's sense of responsibility. He became more than a clown. He was a symbol for the downtrodden, a friend to the lost child in everyone. Yet even as he offered solace to millions, Chaplin could never fully escape the limits of his own loneliness. The harder he tried to bring the world together, the more isolated at times he felt, consumed by the pursuit of a perfection that lay just beyond reach. Still, Chaplin's Tramp remained triumphant, an everyman whose laughter rang clear long after the final curtain fell. Through slapstick, he gave audiences a reprieve from pain. Through melancholy, he invited them to connect and care. The Tramp's greatness was not in his victories, but in his refusal to yield, to keep marching, onward, battered shoes and all, with a hopeful heart. By the 1920s, Chaplin was not just a star, he was a legend. Yet beneath the laughter, there pulsed an eternal ache, a longing not simply to entertain, but to heal the world, to bind up its wounds with laughter and love. And as the Tramp continued his journey across the globe, he carried not only his own pain, but ours as well, making meaning moment by moment out of life's beautiful, sorrowful dance. Certainly, here is the continuation of Charlie Chaplin, Laughing Through Tears, with chapters 5 through 8. Each chapter maintains a creative, emotionally resonant tone, tracing Chaplin's journey through loss, artistic struggle, redemption, and lasting influence. Chapter 5, Silent Screams, Heartache, Exile, and Loneliness. The 20s roared, cinema became talkative, and global adulation wrapped Chaplin in an embrace few mortals have known. Fame was sudden, noisy, glittering, but hidden beneath the laughter. And the crowded premieres were wounds that never fully healed. Behind the screen's shimmering surface, Chaplin's personal world was often chaotic, a silent scream echoing through his private halls. Relationships, so impossibly bright at first, often proved turbulent. His marriages, first to the luminous Mildred Harris, then to the beautiful and troubled Lita Gray, saw love buckle beneath the strain of gossip, age difference, and relentless public scrutiny. The tabloids delighted in his scandals. Their ink was ever hungry for a genius's failings. If the city outside adored the clown, inside his heart was an emptiness only briefly relieved by the creative act. He poured himself into the Kid and City Lights, searching for catharsis and connection. In each film, the Tramp's longing for belonging mirrored Chaplin's own yearning for family, understanding, and a place to call home. His sets became sanctuaries, where he could conduct heartbreak like an orchestra, transmuting his ache into gales of laughter or the ache of a single tear. Then, the world changed. The headlines darkened when Chaplin's fearless voice in The Great Dictator dared to lampoon Adolf Hitler at the very edge of war. The laughter turned uneasy. Chaplin, forever the outsider, had dared to wield comedy as a weapon against hate itself, blurring the line between art and activism, laughter and alarm. But as McCarthyism swept across America, the climate shifted. Chaplin, passionate, progressive, unafraid to criticize inequality, found himself branded un-American. The cacophony of acclaim became a howl of suspicion. Returning from a British premiere in 1952, Chaplin saw his American re-entry permit revoked. Exhausted and betrayed by the country that had crowned him, he settled in Switzerland, the clown now an exile, a king without a homeland. There, in the alpine quiet, the loneliness that had long haunted him deepened like winter snow. Yet, the exiled clown never surrendered to bitterness. He walked garden paths, composed melodies, watched his children play, and mused on art, loss, and the strange fate of being loved by the world, but never truly belonging. The laughter he had sown into the hearts of millions was still his companion, soothing, persistent, a torch in the long night. Chapter 6. Laughter as Weapon. Satire, politics, and social voice. From the earliest days, Charlie Chaplin sensed that comedy was far more than silly fun. It was a sharp-edged instrument, capable of pricking the conscience of kings and peasants alike. For Chaplin, laughter was resistance, protest, and remedy, but never was this clearer than during the turbulent years between wars, as the world stumbled from hope and prosperity into the ruins of depression and the terrors of fascism. In these shadows, Chaplin dared to go where few clowns had gone before. Modern Times is a prime example, a story etched in grease, clockwork, and the longing gazes of the working poor. Chaplin's Tramp, swallowed by relentless machinery, becomes a human caught in the gears of progress, hungry, laughing, and defiant. With each gag, Chaplin offered more than humor. He delivered an indictment, a plea for the dignity of the ordinary person. Audiences laughed, but they also remembered the feeling of the factory floor, the loss of humanity in a mechanized world. With The Great Dictator, laughter became a cry against tyranny. While the planet trembled in the shadow of Hitler's boots, Chaplin donned the costume of the dictator, his infamous mustache now weaponized against the very evil it once resembled. The film's madcap farce is suddenly, astonishingly, interrupted by Chaplin himself, stepping out of character to deliver a trembling, impassioned speech for peace, kindness, and unity. Artifice falls away, and the comedian's eyes are wet. We all want to help one another. Human beings are like that. We want to live by each other's happiness, not by each other's misery. That moment became legend. It proved, more than any review or box office number, that laughter could shake the world's foundations. Comedy, Chaplin believed, could do what politics often failed to: unite us in our shared absurdities, our common aches, our longing for justice. Yet it also ensured that Chaplin would forever stand apart, loved yet feared, admired yet always just outside the circle of acceptance. The price was steep. Governments watched him closely. Critics sharpened their pens. Still, Chaplin's work had become a mirror in which society was forced to recognize both its cruelty and its hope. For all his playful antics, the Tramp, like his creator, remained defiantly human, ever ready to speak truth to power, even if his voice shook or his feet trembled in battered shoes. Chapter 7. The Aging Clown. Reflection, redemption, and regret time, so often the enemy of performers, came for Chaplin as well. The world moved on with color and noise replacing the eloquent silences he cherished. The mustache, the hat, and the cane retreated from screens, replaced by younger clowns and slicker stars. Switzerland became Chaplin's refuge and his stage for the final act. There, amid snowy peaks and quiet mornings, he confronted the ghosts of his past. His mother's voice, his father's absence, the friends lost to time and distance. Some days, the laughter of his children filled his home. On others, the silence seemed to echo with every sorrow he had ever known. Yet old age softened Chaplin. He found joy in composing music for his classic films, in family dinners, in the simple pleasures denied to him in youth. When he returned to England for a brief visit, the streets cheered. Fans spoke his name with reverence. Early pain, though, never erased, was transfigured by memory and gratitude. In his private moments, the regrets lingered, a marriage fractured, friends misunderstood, a homeland lost to politics. But redemption arrived too, carried on the adulation of new generations and the undimmed magic of his films. Through the eyes of his children, he glimpsed hope. Through letters and interviews, he offered wisdom, humility, and the quiet dignity of a soul who had lived honestly, fiercely, and with boundless curiosity. The world that had once chased him away, slowly, awkwardly, invited him back. At the 1972 Academy Awards, Chaplin, now stooped and silver-haired, received a 12-minute standing ovation. In that moment, the old clown stood in the golden light, and the tears on his cheeks were those of both joy and long-held sorrow finally released. Chapter 8. Legacy of Laughter. Eternal echoes in the human heart. Charlie Chaplin is no longer merely a man, nor even a memory. He has become something rarer, a ghost that haunts laughter itself, an eternal echo in the hearts of those who dare to hope amid adversity. His films flicker on, undated by time. Children still giggle at his pratfalls. Adults still wipe away secret tears at the Tramp's heartbreaks. He showed generations that suffering need not end in cynicism, that laughter and weeping can exist arm in arm. Through his artistry, Chaplin gave ordinary people the courage to find joy in the grind of existence, consolation in the face of injustice, and comedy even in defeat. The Tramp's waddle may seem ridiculous, but in it is a quiet heroism, the insistence on getting up again and again after each fall. His influence can scarcely be measured. The greatest comedians, their jokes, their silences, their glimpses into the world's soul, walk the path Chaplin cleared. In times of despair or division, his work is a reminder that compassion is not weakness, that empathy is a flame to be fanned, and that even in the darkest rooms, one might trip over a smile. As the credits roll on this story, one truth remains. To laugh through tears is the highest form of courage and perhaps the purest kind of wisdom. Charlie Chaplin taught us not only how to endure life's sorrows, but how to transform them, so that even as we wipe away a tear, we might share a knowing laugh with those who walk beside us. In every heart that finds hope on a grey street, in every soul that believes in beauty amid hardship, Chaplin's spirit endures, a silent partner, nudging us forward, urging us to keep going, cane in hand, joy trembling quietly beneath our sorrow. If you found this video helpful, inspiring, or entertaining, don't forget to hit that like button. And if you're new here, make sure to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss out on future content. Your support means the world. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below.